All right. Happy Thursday. It's not Friday today. It is actually Thursday. And that is because we are changing these weekly news days into Thursdays rather than Fridays here. So Thursday afternoons is the new kind of date and time for these weekly streams. How's it going, Nico? How's it going, Jake? Good to have you guys here again.
So weather outside is awesome. Thrilled to do another session of because we just like always covering great stories. We'll be joined by a special guest as well, and I'm just pumped and thrilled like always.
Exactly. New day, new me, Pierre.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, I like that mantra. There's a clear cover story here today, which we were talking like kind of in the beginning of this week. We were saying, it's not that many things have happened this week. What are we gonna talk about? And then from nowhere, boom, Evolution announces the next acquisition here of the very controversial, you could say, game studio NolimitCity. Which we're going to go into detail here with today. We are hoping to have the kind of legendary Twitter investor profile Magnus Andersson with us here today. We'll wait to see a little bit if we'll have the pleasure of him joining us here. Otherwise, we'll go through that story together. But that is not it today. Actually, we have quite a lot of things to discuss today, and I think one of the major news stories that have been flying under the radar. Here, I know that we reported on it as iGaming Next, but it is a story that the industry really should take notice of right now, and even the investors should be aware of this as well, which is the fact that Germany is clamping down considerably now, potentially on the unregulated gambling markets, and to a much wider extent potentially than other jurisdictions are on the unregulated gambling markets, and this can have consequences that can reach quite deep into the industry. So we're going to talk about that today and what this means for the industry. Continued headwinds in Europe, of course, it's not easy, and this comes at the back of the fact that Kindred announced last week that they are pulling out from the German market. Which kind of segues us a little bit into another story, which is Kindred are continuing to facing even more headwinds this week, in that they lost a court case in Norway. The Norwegian Gaming Authority is asking Kindred to leave the market, whereas Kindred fiercely is defending their position, saying that that the Norwegian Gambling Authority has no authority to ask Kindred to leave the market. So we're going to talk about that. And last week, we talked about here in sunny Malta, we were removed from the grey list, but added in its stead was another island, or at least half island, which is Gibraltar. So one rock for another, and that obviously has implications, because what is interesting with the FATF grey listing of Gibraltar is that they specifically talk about the gambling industry, which they did not really do when Malta was added. So those are just some of the stories that we'll pick up on here today during this hour that we have together with you guys. I can't really say good morning anymore now that we do this in the afternoon. So good afternoon for those who are joining us here. Good morning, Henry, Nico, Bogdan, and Lars. It's nice to have you guys with us here. And as always, we are live. If we say anything that is not correct, or if we want to add any nuance here to the topics that we will be discussing today, feel free to do so. Nico, what do you say? How does this sound?
It sounds awesome. And just on a positive note, because we had Kindred pulling out of the market, but on a positive note, they signed a deal with Amsterdam, so they are totally focusing on the Dutch market. So this just on a positive note, not to just push Kindred a little bit into a more positive light, just a little bit.
Absolutely. I am ready here with my strawberry flavored water, and I just had a little bit of lunch, and I'm reading here as well that Magnus is coming in here in 15 minutes. So Magnus Andersson will be joining us in 15 minutes. So why don't we start on a different note than Evolution today? And Jake, a question to you. Obviously, one story that we didn't mention here is the social betting business BetBull, which have ceased operations now in the week. Another kind of story here: an operator focused on the UK market, which is notoriously very difficult right now, claims another victim. Can you talk about what happened here, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is another worthwhile case because it obviously leans into kind of a trend in the US that we're seeing at the moment of social betting and exchange betting, and whether it can really become profitable or take off. And BetBull was a company, a UK company, that appeared to have kind of made a bit of a success of this model. It's effectively an app where people can either follow tipsters and follow their bets in with them, or they can join a group with their friends and talk about each other's bets and receive a notification if your friends just put an accumulator on that you can then do as well and follow it along whilst you're watching sport. I think it's important to say it was built on its own proprietary technology as well, and I think that's why we saw Wynn Resorts, obviously a massive US casino operator, fork out for I think it's a 71% stake in the company. Back in I'm not sure when that was, a year or two ago now. It's worth saying that was at a time, Chris Grove pointed this out to me actually, that was during a time where investors were crazy about US sports betting still. It seems a long time ago now.
Yeah.
And they were all saying, all the operators were saying it's important for us to bring our own technology in-house. And that was kind of a key narrative that investors really played into and got behind. And BetBull kind of did that for Wynn Interactive, which is the online sports betting division of Wynn. However, so Wynn Interactive, I mean, the front end of that website has primarily been built on BetBull technology. So you could say it's a case of job done for them. It served its purpose, which might be why they've now opted to close the operation down. But as you say, Pierre, it was even though it was bought by a US company, it was still a UK facing business. It was licensed in the UK. All the consumers were from the UK. And it's just an incredibly difficult market. Like, it's hard enough for the tier one, top tier operators to make a profit in the UK at the moment. So if you're a social betting startup, it's even more difficult. And I think the last results they'd posted on Companies House in 2020 showed that they were making a profit, but that was a long time ago now, especially in this industry. And I think they're probably loss making at the moment in the UK, which is another reason why Wynn have probably decided to pull the plug. But there's some good further reading on this topic that my old colleague Brad Allen has published today on Legal Sports Report, which kind of takes a deeper dive into social betting as a concept and whether it can be successful, and a few of the examples that have tried and failed in the UK previously. And it's a question of maturity in those two markets, the UK and the US. The UK has kind of been there and done this, and the US, it's still a fresh and exciting idea that we can pitch in together and bet with our friends. But whether it's realistic or whether it's profitable, I think we could see a bunch of US companies also find out the hard way in the next year or so.
Yeah, and as Robert Lentz over here points out, that BetBull, or at least the domain, used to be a betting exchange in the 2000s. Someone recycled the domain, or some relationship to. Is asking the question. Maybe someone recycled the domain or some relationship to the exchange in the past. That's something to think about as well. And as well, when every time this happens, when an organization ceases to exist, or when, like in the case of Evolution, when Evolution acquired NetEnt and a lot of people had to go, there's always a lot of talent up for grabs, and we can see Betsson being cheeky. Here, Paul Murphy of Betsson, who's publishing the fact that Betsson is always looking for talent, and it's a company who doesn't pull the rug like BetBull decided to do for its employees. So when one man's misfortune, another man's fortune, as they say. But an interesting story nonetheless. And it would be interesting to dig in deeper to understand why they have ceased operations, because this seems to have come out of the blue to some extent. We all know that the UK market. Yeah, feel free, Jake, to continue.
No, I was going to say it's worth talking about DraftKings as well, as we usually do, because they are a big player in the US, but they're quite bullish on social betting. They believe it can be profitable, and they've invested a lot in it. They have that functionality on their app already. But it's funny. Jason Robbins gave some comments to an investor conference a month ago, and he was making the point that basically, when the UK tried social betting, the whole concept of social media and the internet was at a much earlier stage. People weren't as online in their lives as they are now, which is why it can work in the US, is the point he was trying to make. But he said he signed that off by saying it's almost as if it never really got the attention, that social betting never got a look in the UK. And Richard Flint, who is the former chief executive of Sky Betting and Gaming, kind of narrowed in on that line on Twitter and wasn't particularly happy about it, because that isn't true. This has been tried, hundreds of times in the UK, and a lot of people have tried and spent an awful lot of money trying to make it work. I don't think it's a case that it never got any attention, although that's what Jason Robbins has said.
Yeah, interesting. And Robert Lansdorff adds another comment here, is that the preliminary result for the year 2004, significant achievements in the year ending 31st December 2004, were the establishing of BetBull, the European Betting Exchange PLC in February, the product launch of the exchange betting platform BetBull in September, and the successful completion of an initial public offering on the Viennese stock exchange in October of 2024. So some deep digging going on here in real time by Robert Lansdorff. If you have more kind of deep analysis here, Robert, feel free during the hour as well, and we'll add that to the conversation here as we go along. This is what these live streams are for. We are digging deep here. We're trying to find out the answers to these questions. So yeah, thank you for that. Always interesting. Shall we move over quickly to another topic here as well?
One second.
Maybe we. Yeah, absolutely. Nico, feel free.
Yeah, 1 second. Just let me add something into the overall discussion and the equipment. If we just keep in mind that when they are one of the first, and as of now the only ones who are actually able to open up a retail casino in the UAE, and they already stated, if I'm not wrong, a couple of months ago, that they probably want to get rid of their Win Interactive. So the overall business people had been, okay, Win Interactive is for sale. They are licensed in 9 states in the US already. They are licensed in the holy grail state of New York as well. So this might be something which we could put to the equation as well as BetBull with their 71% of which shares they actually hold, that they pulled the plug based on the focusing on the retail business, especially in the UAE. If I'm not mistaken, they have to invest a 9-digit figure to just establish the casino and make the dream in the UAE possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the next gold rush for the casino industry, is the UAE, of course. And we had one of the sheikhs here that granted a license to win here a couple of months ago in one of the smaller sheikhs. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's not in Dubai. It is in one of the smaller sheikhs, essentially.
Marjan. I don't know if I just got the name right. Marjan. They are not in Dubai, but in Marjan.
Okay. There we go. Good stuff, Nico. All right, guys. So moving on to the next topic. We're waiting here for Magnus to join us in the live stream. But we'll have to kind of keep the evolution topic as a bit of a cliffhanger for the moment here. But if we jump over to the fact that Kindred is now facing kind of additional headwinds in Europe with the legal setback in Norway. Is that a story you can expand on as well, Jake? Because this is this is a court case that has been ongoing for years, essentially against Kindred.
Yeah, exactly. This has been rumbling on for a long time now. Escalated properly in 2019. I think basically, Norway, which operates on a monopoly model, where a state-owned company and one private company have the rights to offer all legalized betting in the country, has said that international gambling companies like Kindred, are not permitted under Norwegian law to offer gambling to consumers in the country, basically. Kindred's always fought against that, and it said, on multiple occasions that European law means that it's entitled to offer its services because it has a Malta gaming authority license. Neither party in this debate is stepping back on their stance. They're doubling down on it slightly. I think this development occurred last week because the case was escalated to the Oslo District Court, which is the highest it's got so far, and they actually sided with the Norwegian regulator. So, it's another blow to Kindred. But again, they vowed to appeal this ruling, which I think is the third time this has gone through a different court or appeals process. So yeah, nothing's going to happen overnight. This is going to continue to rumble on in the background. But yeah, just more headwinds they could do without in Europe, really, as you point out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the regulator is essentially claiming that that Kindred could be facing fines up to 120,000 euros per day as long as they continue to accept Norwegian players. But these are fines or sanctions that essentially Kindred are not accepting to pay, essentially. And I suppose they are waiting for the highest form of court in Norway to basically close the case at some point. But then I suppose from there it goes to the European, it goes to the court on European level, and I suppose this is one of those court cases that is going to be prolonged for a very long time. We can see here as well that Robin Eric Reed is joining us here as well today, with who is one of the kind of leading Norwegian iGaming professionals here, originally behind GIG and now behind the major gambling fund Happy Hour. He's inputting a comment here that a likely outcome of this being a remote license website having to ensure they cannot be deemed to target Norwegians, language in English, etc. So essentially that I believe at the moment Kindred is offering basically gameplay towards Norwegian. Are they offering their sites in Norwegian, or is it only in English at the moment? They are certainly doing marketing that are clearly targeting Norwegians with the sponsorship of Magnus Carlsen, the Norwegian chess player, and so on. And I suppose that is the argument that the Norwegian gambling company are making, that they are targeting Norwegian players specifically through the marketing.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, like Robin says there, we saw the same thing in the Netherlands while that was still an unregulated market. International operators weren't allowed to write in the Dutch language. They couldn't use symbols related to the Netherlands, so they couldn't have windmills or clogs or the color orange or anything that was basically designed to appeal to Dutch consumers. And yeah, it might be that Norway follows a similar route if it isn't already.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, interesting nonetheless, for sure. So guys, you know what I think? I think we can jump into the evolution story here and talk about it well, and then we'll see if Magnus is able to join us here throughout the broadcast, and I'm sure there's a lot to discuss here. So there will be enough time for Magnus as well when he does appear here during the live stream. But yes, headline news of the week essentially is the fact that Evolution has acquired the kind of controversial game studio NolimitCity. NolimitCity has kind of carved out this niche in the industry to be a bit more provocative. They are targeting specifically the kind of hardcore gamblers, so to say, and they have always been really well received by kind of the more passionate gamblers, so to say. They've always been voted the gaming studio of the year, the games of the year, and so on and so forth. And Evolution has now taken the step to acquire them. And as we are presenting this very headline, surprise, surprise, everyone, here in the stream, we have Magnus Andersson with us today. Hello, Magnus. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm fine, thank you.
Good to have you here, Magnus. Good to have you here. We have just jumped on this topic now of Evolution, obviously acquiring the game studio NolimitCity. And it would be great to hear your kind of analysis here as we begin. You saw the news coming yesterday. From your point of view here, Magnus, how did you react to this acquisition?
Yeah, I must say I'm very positive to the acquisition. I must admit, of course, that I'm not an expert on the slots business. I try to follow it, of course, as it's now part of Evolution, but I'm much more into the live part of their business, the main part of the business. But I think that more or less everyone agrees that the games that No Limit has are very competitive, they're very popular, they're very special in some ways. They have a great technology and everything. And I think also that the purchase price is reasonable. Of course, it's not rock bottom cheap, but quality costs, as we used to say in Sweden. I think overall it's very good, and I think it seems to have a good earnout structure also, with the stretch targets and all the kinds of things that you want to see in a merger. And I think it struck me yesterday when I read about this, that it seems a little bit like Evolution is or has the same strategy that the LVMH has. LVMH, I guess not everyone listening to this, perhaps not everyone knows what LVMH is, but it's Europe's biggest company. And they are a huge conglomerate within the luxury business. And luxury is, of course, quite separate from iGaming. But the strategy that LVMH has had since the company was formed in the 1980s is basically that they use a large part of their cash flow, and they also borrow money, of course, but a large part of their cash flow they use to buy the absolute top brands within luxury. From the beginning, they were only Louis Vuitton and Maître Chandon and Hennessy. But nowadays, if you see a very strong luxury brand, you could, like 50-50 chance that it's part of the LVMH group. And basically, I think that what we have seen from Evolution now in the last couple of years here is that instead of returning too much money to the shareholders, they use this crazy strong cash flow that they have to purchase, really some of the best companies that there are in the iGaming business. And I think this is very interesting because even though, especially some of you have been in this business for a long time, but it's a fairly young business, iGaming. We must see that. If you compare that to French vineyards that are 400 years old and so on, iGaming is quite an immature business still. And I think that it would be very good, I think, if Evolution could continue with this strategy and pick up really the best companies in the business. Because, as everybody who follows Evolution know that they are crazy profitable. They have an EBITDA margin around 70% now, and it's been growing for the last, since forever almost. Any such business, by definition, makes lots of money, and this can present a problem, of course, that you have to do something with the money, and then you can, of course, just pay a dividend. Everybody likes that, but you can also, lots of people want them to repurchase shares, but really, if you just repurchase, or the people who are most keen to have a repurchase are the ones that want to sell their stocks. The sooner the better, really. And for those of us like myself and I think many others, we're in it for the long run. And it's of course a very nice proposition Evolution can employ this cash and buy a company that has an EBITDA margin that's even higher at 77% than Evolution has. So, I mean, it's much better, I think, than just returning it to the shareholders.
Yeah, interesting move here, and I suppose as well, Magnus, that if we want to liken the strategy of Evolution to another company, it would be kind of like Luxottica is perhaps another example here. Who kind of consolidated the sunglass market and turned it into like a luxury market as well, and they control the entire sunglasses market in the world more or less these days, and it seems to be what Evolution is doing here on the game production side, slowly but surely as well, as they are consolidating.
Also, Berkshire Hathaway, if you want. I mean, Berkshire Hathaway is Warren Buffett's company. Is also. I mean, they are not strict buying in any particular business, but I mean, it's basically the same thing. They want the best companies to be part of their company, and I think, if you know what you're doing, if you're buying the right companies at the right price, this can be enormously profitable for everyone.
Absolutely. I'm going to show a graph here of the share price of Evolution in the last week, and you can actually see that when the markets opened here the other day and the announcement was made that Evolution is acquiring NolimitCity, the share price actually fell on the news, but then after that it has recovered and gained a couple of percentage points. Why do you think, Magnus, that the first reaction was a bit lukewarm from the investors?
Well, I mean, everything fell yesterday morning. Also, we have to think about that. I mean, lots of growth companies fell yesterday morning, but I don't really know. I mean, when the NetEnt deal was presented, the stock I think fell by 10% in the beginning or something like that. I think that. I mean, Evolution a couple of years back, the market was just saying, "Oh no, what is this?" I'm very skeptical, and let's see, let them show that they can continue to grow because we think it's going to slow down now and so on. But then, of course, last year, and when everything went up and everybody felt, "Oh, Evolution is doing everything," so I think if this had happened a year earlier, or I mean in March or April last year, we would have risen by 15% in the morning or something like that. But now I think that the market is just running away from everything that's growing. Basically, they want companies that are growing by 5% per year at a steady pace since 40 years ago. But now I think the market reaction since then has been positive, and I think that I've actually not read. Perhaps I don't read everything, but I haven't read any negative comments regarding this. I think that perhaps someone can make a case, but I think it's difficult because Evolution wants to be a broader company as compared to what it has been, and of course they are now steadily growing into a giant also in the slots market. And even though that part of the business isn't growing as quickly as live, and so, but I think it's great, and I wouldn't have liked it very much if they had bought Kambi or some other company like that and just stretched themselves even further. I think it's great that they are within live and also in slots because they are so similar. So I'm happy. And then we'll have to see.
I think that's a good comment. That the speculation should Evolution buy Kambi and so on. I think it's a good analysis you make here, Magnus. That Evolution first and foremost had to figure out how to grow the RNG side.
Absolutely, and they have things to prove still. I mean, we're all waiting for this to double-digit growth within the RNG business, and this will happen, of course. But they were quite. I mean, Martin Carlson was quite strong in saying that this should be counted outside of those double-digit growth prospects they have for the old RNG business, but we'll have to see. I mean, competition is much stronger, as we all know, within RNG, and as long as live is growing as it seems to be growing now, and as much as it grew last quarter, I think everything is looking bright for the company.
Absolutely. And so I want to talk a little bit. So the headline here that we have chosen is the fact that Evolution acquires the controversial game studio NolimitCity. And then, of course, the question is, why is NolimitCity controversial? And so what we talked about here in the beginning is the fact that NolimitCity have carved out this kind of controversial approach to game production, where they are focusing on a kind of niche in the industry, the kind of the hardcore gambler and the kind of the passionate gambler, and they all love NolimitCity. It's a brand. It's a brand that is for the players, by the players. Jonas Tegman, the CEO and co-founder, he's very active in the forums. He always communicates with the players. The players always communicate with him, and he's a very out there person, let's say. And so the result of these are, I'm just going to bring up like 3 examples here of some of the like a little bit controversial kind of games they have made, you could say. So you have Punk Toilet here, for example, and someone pointed out that it looks like it's Pontus Lindvall of Betsson that is wearing the pink glasses. Whether that is true or not, I don't know. But you have here like a Glory Door, and they are pushing the limits a little bit. And this is one of the newer games, which is I can't remember the name of the game. It's called the Karen Man-Eater, which is basically kind of poking fun of this kind of Karen meme that this kind of Karen-looking caricature is complaining against to the manager all the time. It's a little bit controversial, you could say. But I think the kind of the more controversial side would be the game Remember Gulag, who's maybe not super timely for the moment, but nonetheless, it's a game that is performing well. It should be noted that this game was released obviously before the war broke out, but still controversial. Obviously, Joseph Stalin on the poster, and it is out there, let's say, and so that is the niche that NolimitCity has carved out, and that is the niche that have made NolimitCity successful. It has given them an identity, and they haven't been holding back to the same extent that perhaps a larger game studio would, in kind of avoiding any form of controversy, and especially a game studio that is listed on the public markets. Releasing these games for a company to the size of Evolution could potentially bring some risk. And I think my question would be, what happens to the kind of the creativity and the niche that NolimitCity has carved out when they now belong under this giant publicly traded company that is more careful about their image. Is there a risk, do you think, that
if they do something really tasteless? But I mean, it's when you look at that, it's just in good spirit kind of things. I mean, it's not like they're breaking any real barriers for what you can do. And I mean, I'm not worried about the future there, because it seems, and also what I've heard from Evolution, that they very much, and this is also just like I guess Berkshire Hathaway and LVMH, that they let their subsidiaries continue to do what they do best. And I know, of course, when it came to NetEnt, they had to shut down the live operation and so on. They had to cut a lot of costs for various reasons. But if you look at, for example, Etsugi, the little Israeli live studio that they bought, I think it was 2019, that was the first live operator in America, in New Jersey. It seems to me that they have continued exactly as they were. They have their own technology, they have some of their own games, they have their own markets. They even have a small studio, I heard, in Colombia, where Evolution is not present, but are thinking about building a big studio. And they have their own part, perhaps a little bit lower when it comes to the offerings and technology and so on, but they have carved their own niche out of the market. And I think that if you look at BTG, last year's very interesting acquisition that they made, they seem to be working completely on their own, but of course part of the group, but doing exactly what they have been doing. So I mean, if we talk about EBITDA margins, I think they had like a 90% margin to BTG when they were acquired, and they are of course a small part of the group, but it seems that they are just I mean, those few guys that work there, they continue to work just like they have all the time. And I think I would be very disappointed in Evolution if they started to mess around and say no, you can't make funny games like this. You have to be more serious and only have cherries and diamonds and things like that. I think I can't say I'm worried about that at all.
Yeah, it's
they're not American after all. I mean, a new American owner perhaps would throw away some of the titles, but I wouldn't think that Evolution will do that.
Funny actually to go back to look at the acquisition of Big Time Gaming here, as you pointed out, they famously were employing a team the size of a football team, basically with 12 man strong, with an upfront payment from Evolution of 220 million euro. I think NolimitCity is slightly bigger in the workforce. They are about 100 people. But it just goes to show like how you can scale a game studio if you do it right. But then on the other hand, there is another 200, 300 game studios out there fighting for the same.
And it also shows very much the difference between the slots business and the live business, which is of course much more capital intensive and has huge operations just to run a game and follow all the rules and so on. And this is something that I think that anyone who's, I mean, not everyone is interested in investing in this business, but if you do, you have to really realize the huge difference there. Because if you look at those guys who started No Limits, they were working at NetEnt, I think it was, and they just, I mean, it's basically very, very similar to the gaming business, computer games, because we have so many stories there about a couple of guys who started their own company instead of working for someone else, and they had a huge success with their games, and that you can really do that, and that's very nice for them. But of course, it also means that there are so much more competition, which Evolution has to face now.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, now looking back at the big BTG, it was very similar deal structure to NolimitCity, the acquisition of Big Time Gaming. It was a 220 million euro total upfront consideration with a prospect of up to 450 million. So it's almost identical. In this case, it was 200 million euro upfront rather than 220, and up to 340 million for NolimitCity rather than 450. But part of the Big Time Gaming was paid in shares. That's the difference.
But I mean, this is a no share offering. This is basically the money that Evolution's business is creating for this year. And it's even more impressive when you think about it. They have a 70% EBITDA margin when they don't have any long-term debt whatsoever. I mean, it's very strange. I mean, it would be easier to make more money if you borrow money and so on, but they don't even do that. So, I mean, and that is also, I think, a very good thing for any shareholder, or for us shareholders, that especially in today's macro climate, it's a very good thing not to have to worry about your bonds and the interest you have to pay and so on. So instead, they can buy this and get interest from the money instead. Their own money.
Absolutely. Jake, listening in on this, and obviously you have covered the story as well at iGaming Next. Is there any other kind of interesting points that you have captured here? I know you put together kind of like 5 things that we learned through this acquisition, and is there any other interesting points from your end?
I think you've touched on the majority of them. I think Magnus has hit the nail on the head, really. I mean, you don't spend 200 million on a 77% EBITDA margin business and then change everything. They're doing something right. And I think, like you said, the competition in slots is intense compared to live casino, and NolimitCity have done what others haven't been able to do by standing out in that vertical with the kind of titles that they've been able to produce. And I don't think there's any way that Evo are going to change that. But one of the synergies, obviously, is that they've got this distribution system and this one-stop shop where they're going to be able to pump those titles out to a lot more providers in a lot more markets. But in terms of the games, I don't think they're controversial. I think they're close to the edge, admittedly, but it's slots. There are only adults playing it, right? I think Martin Carlson hit the nail on the head. He said dark themes, but definitely with a sense of humor, and I think that's probably how they're considered in the industry. And I think they'll be left to run at arm's length, like Magnus alluded to earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be worth to note as well that many operators are, especially the publicly traded ones, are actually, surprisingly enough for the gambling industry, can be very reluctant to engage in any form of controversy. So I give you an example here of the story I heard, which is that Evolution last year, they launched this kind of NFT slot, and on the back of that, they bought 3 NFTs, these CryptoPunks, essentially. And these are basically pixelated images of, like, it looks like an 8-bit Super Mario cartoon kind of thing. And one of these 3 CryptoPunks, they are holding a cigarette in his hand, but it's like a pixelated cigarette. And this is like a little detail in the, in the kind of the left corner of the slot machine. It's not really that relevant. And because of that pixelated CryptoPunk, there were several operators who didn't take the game.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and the same thing as well when we've spoken to Jonas Stegman, the CEO of NolimitCity. There are many operators who are not taking the games of NolimitCity, and especially not the more controversial ones, so to say. You can shrug the shoulders and say, like, what the hell, where the gambling industry is for adults only, and this is like a part of the little sinful activities or whatever. Like, we should be able to spy things up a bit, but that's the reality of things. Is sometimes many of these operators, they don't like the controversy. Even the fact that Evolution named what was it, XXX Extreme, like XXX Extreme, one of the games, Starburst XXX Extreme. It was met with some controversy as well, but like with the connotation of XXS. It's funnily enough, these things occur, but yes, on the grand scheme of things, NolimitCity have been doing very well. I remember.
Basically, it's just like when you think about the live part of business, there you can. So some of the games are. For example, in Sweden, some of the games, the game shows and so on, they are not allowed. Some of the game shows are not allowed for some whatever reason, but. As long as the players like them, that's really the basis for any supplier of this business. Of course, it all has to do with how the players react to it. It's just, it's another similarity with the gaming business. There, you can have very, very nice graphics, and you can have very politically correct games and so on. But if people don't play them, you're in trouble. And obviously, people like those games. So even if, let's say 10% of the operators that Evolution had won't take them for this reason. Still, if they're popular with the rest among the players or the rest of the operators, it's not an issue, I think.
No, absolutely. And here is the CryptoPunk with the cigarette, by the way. This is what caused the game to be dropped by some of the operators, basically. As you can see, very, very controversial and
terrible.
Terrible for people. Brilliant, Magnus. This has been really interesting. I suppose I have one last question for you, actually. As a Swedish person, you are very well aware, perhaps, of the chaotic nature of traveling right now in Sweden. It seems like the entire.
I'm off onto the highway in like 30 minutes now, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and there's been this like travel chaos at Arlanda in Stockholm.
Oh, you talked about that. I thought you did.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Traffic is terrible today. Okay.
Oh, okay. No, I'm thinking more like in general, the fact that coming out of COVID, there was this like huge backlog of applying for passports in Sweden, and now on the back of that, the whole country is trying to travel at the same time, and this has caused obviously like massive queues in Arlanda and other airports and so on. And that leads me to a little question here related to our industry. Seeing the fact that these activities as online gambling maybe doesn't happen as much when you're on vacation as when you're sitting home. Are you worried that maybe in the next quarter we'll see a little bit of a downtick in player activity, just based on the fact that the entire nation of Sweden and other countries are now, ramping up their holiday activities again?
That is an issue, and I think it was an issue last year. I'm mostly following evolution here, but I mean, the third quarter last year was not very. I shouldn't say it was weak, because everything is relative. They grew very nicely, but it was clearly weaker when, especially, we had also the COVID effect that people were going on vacations, and I think on the margin at least this is an issue. Well, especially for those countries in Europe that take their vacation exactly in the same period. I mean, in America they take vacations whenever the company allows them, but in Europe we have a very but in the beginning of beginning until the middle of the third quarter. So this is an issue, but we'll have to see. And perhaps it's a good thing for society as a whole also, that people go outside and not sit with computers all the time and play.
Yeah, fair enough. And finally, Magnus, we were debating whether to show this meme or not before the broadcast. I think we're gonna give it a stab here. Magnus, or actually, you know what? We'll ask Nico here. It started with NetEnt, it continued with Red Tiger, then BTG, now NolimitCity. Nico, who is behind the next door?
Yeah. First of all, as long as the margin keeps on booming like it's already booming, I don't know what they're might be acquiring. Slots is not my home turf, but thanks for putting me on the spot.
Brilliant. I'm gonna go with Play and Go. That's my 2 cents. Let's see if it happens. Not the most cheap acquisition, but nonetheless, they are doing well and they are starting up in the US now. That's gonna be my guess. All right. Thank you so much, Magnus, for joining us today.
Thank you. Always
thanks for coming on my short notice here, and we will see you here next time again. Thank you so much.
No problem. Okay,
thanks, Magnus.
Thank you. All right. So interesting discussion points nonetheless here. If we are to jump over to kind of the last topic here today, jumping over from Evolution, which is the German market. It's a very important story for the iGaming industry, and it's a quite complex story. The fact that the German authorities seemingly are now kind of going after the unregulated gambling space quite aggressively. They have been threatening a lot of unregulated operators in the last couple of years. They've even threatened kind of top level CEOs with prison time if they continue to operate within the German market. But now we are starting to see action from the German regulator. We saw here a couple of weeks ago, perhaps the first case is the fact that IOSF Galea, who is in the news for all the wrong reasons in general. IOSF Galea is in the news as well because he's involved in a fraud case as a former MGA employee. But he was arrested on the back of a tax evasion case from the German authorities, which potentially is based on the German authorities taking action here against the unregulated space now. So, Jake, perhaps if you want to start here, would you like to kind of give more nuance to this story and what Why is this such an important story for the industry right now?
Yeah, I can try. So I think,
Yeah.
it boils down to two segments, really. The first is that from the 1st of July this year, the newly appointed regulator is going to start regulating iGaming companies in Germany. Obviously, Germany said it was going to regulate the market a number of years ago now. And basically, when that happened, before they had created a specific gambling regulator, the state administration office in Saxony-Anhalt had basically been responsible for monitoring gambling activity in the country. So now, obviously, that state body is preparing to hand over responsibility to the actual gambling regulator, which is why, and that happens on the 1st of July, which is why we're now starting to see some actual impacts from the events of the last 12 months, effectively. We wrote a story about Kindred obviously withdrawing from Germany, and I think that was kind of the trigger that we're about to see a flood of further news in the market. But crucially, obviously, like in most gaming jurisdictions, gambling companies are regulated by the gaming regulator, which can result in fines or license revocations or personal licenses being taken away. But because this has been under the watchful eye of the state, a lot of gambling companies could actually face criminal charges for their activity over the last 12 months that's been targeting Germany. And the latest we've heard is that 25 criminal charges have been filed since July 2021. And that's from a total of 136 cases of illegal gambling that were checked across a total of 780 websites. So, this state office has had its work cut out quite significantly. But yeah, I mean, that could potentially impact multi-licensed operators, carousel licensed operators. I guess the onus is on us now to investigate this further. We've got Sonia on the team now as a journalist who's German, so hopefully she can help us in that respect. And Nico, of course. Nico is in the market, and yeah, we should probably hand over to him now for his thoughts as well on this topic, I would think.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for zooming in a little bit on this one. I know it's quite complex in Germany, especially as we already have the sports betting regime or sports betting authority handling all the sports betting applications. And by July the 1st, as you already pointed out, we have the chance, or in Germany, you have the chance to actually apply for poker, slots, or a casino license, which is handed in Halle, while sports betting licenses are still handled at the RP Darmstadt until the end of this year, and then each and every iGaming license will be handed over to the authorities of Halle. And as you already touched on, back in the days, one license had been giving out for slots operators from Schleswig-Holstein, and this was just a state license. So each and everybody living in Schleswig-Holstein or spending most of the time in Schleswig-Holstein was able to actually sign up for a page and has been catered by that page. As soon as they left Schleswig-Holstein, they could sign up for the Malta entity of pretty much the same operator, but it wasn't licensed in Germany. So that's why you have a lot of investigations or players suing the operators for claiming their losses. But it's also the other side of the story that operators can sue the players with respect to not paying out the winnings. So it's a two-way road. And what we always should keep in mind, and what's actually happening I think I brought this up last week, that all licensed sports betting operators are suing the authority of RP Darmstadt, so of Hessen, as they are not kind of finding illegal operations. So if you just consider you're applying for a license, you did everything the authority asked you literally to do so, and out of a sudden they are not finding the illegal operations. And for sure, all these illegal operations, they don't have to deal with any kind of spending limits. They can offer all the markets. And that's why, as of now, the authorities, especially in Halle, they just want to give all the license or the licensees who are in the process of actually applying for a license a good feeling and a chance, like actually, kind of suing these things to advertise applying for a license in the first place. If you don't do these kinds of fines to illegal operations, why should you go for a license in the first place? So this is the kind of sort of Damocles. And as said, all sports betting operators already sued the state of Hessen. I think it was a month ago. And as of now, we just see license being given out by license. And Robert just gave another go as the website of mybet.de, which is owned by Ruleo. They are handed or given out the third license. So as of now, we have 3 official licensees for the slots operations, which is Mernov, owned by the biggest companies of Merkur and Novomatic. Then by beginning of this week, a license has been given out to Tipwin, which are in the news for another reason. I'm pretty sure, Jake, you can zoom into this one as well. And today, just the license has been given out to Releo. So it will be thrilling times, still thrilling times in Germany. And as said, so in the end, the authority just need to make sure that it just makes sense for operators to actually go for a license and that these operations are taken care of by blocking out all the illegal operations.
Right. And I suppose one of the key points here to remember is the fact that the German authorities are essentially claiming that operators should pay a 19% VAT essentially on the profits they'll be making on the German players, regardless if they are regulated or not. And I suppose that is the angle the authorities are taking here. And if you don't pay this VAT, essentially, you can potentially be facing criminal charges or hefty fines as an operator, and so on and so forth. And we got a comment here from someone in the industry that if you are offering German players to play on your site right now, you should be very nervous, and especially so if you have been if you have been doing this in the past as well. You are accruing this kind of 19% VAT payments over a period of time as well. And so, we've been talking about kind of, major kind of unlicensed, unregulated casinos like State.com, for example. Are they in the crosshairs of the German authorities? There was the story coming out here that one of the kind of YouTube stars in the German markets, Ron Bielchi, I believe. He's being investigated now for kind of marketing activities, marketingstake.com. He was a partner with them. So again, if you are operating in the unregulated environment, accepting German players is not a good space right now. Essentially, that is the big story, and we are now seeing enforcement rather than just threats into the market. So that will be the interesting point. And hello, Rory. You are very late to the party here today. We can see a comment here in the chat. We are just kind of starting to wind down, but good that you managed to join us in the last bit of it. So, Jake, any kind of last comments from you here on this story or on the topics in general that we have covered today?
No, I think we've covered them quite well. I'll just say, Germany is a story that needs to be covered in greater detail over the coming months. And Kindred, withdrew, and they might not be the last company to say, well, actually, this just isn't worth our while. So we're gonna pull out. But yeah, watch this space, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely all eyes on Germany to that point right now for all the wrong reasons, let's say. All right, Nico, Jake, it's been great to spend this hour together with you guys, like always. It feels like, we're going into the weekend here. It's like the connection here is that every time we do this, it's like we're going into Friday, a soon weekend. But I assure you, it is still Thursday. And we're going to continue doing these live streams on Thursdays here at 3 p.m. CET, so that our lovely American friends can join us here in the future as well. Or they don't have to wake up basically 2 a.m. any longer to join these live streams. They can wake up in a reasonable time to join us here today. But Nico, Jake, thank you so much for today. Shall we head down to the beach? Pina colada time, I think.
Yeah,
and this doesn't
always.
sound awkward like it used to sound when we were claiming the same, on a Friday morning at 11 o'clock.
We've earned it now.
As now, it's a reasonable time, to be honest. It's a reasonable time to just, go out there for a Cuba Libre or something.
Yes.
That'll be Nico in 2 hours' time.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's end the live stream today with the CryptoPunk that got Evolution into trouble. Thank you so much, Nico, Jake. See you next week, and take care everyone for joining us today. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.